Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another series of interviews. And today we're going to tackle yet another fight night, but this time it is Fight Night NA, and we have with ourselves today the winner of Fight Night NA, Garretz. How are you feeling, Garretz, today?
Hey, Casman, I'm feeling great. And you?
I am doing good. Actually, not that good because we already see on the screen a deck that is still going to be around for 2 more weeks. A deck that
Yeah.
nonetheless is powerful, but people already know it's out of order. It's too good to be real, so it might see change. So we talked before the interview that we might not discuss more about the list itself, but rather the experience with the deck in the tournament. For example, I would like to know if TF has dropped any game.
Yeah, so the FS dropped 2 games, actually. He dropped 2 games to other 2 TF pieces. Yeah. So
Can you
like
go a bit over those games and what were the deciding factors that made you lose those games?
so I faced in Fight Night. I had three. There was 3 people with the same lineup. Me, 7 keys, and what am I? And I faced 7 keys in round 1, and what am I in the winners final? And against 7 keys, I lost game 1 with VCF in the VCF mirror, and also the other game was the in the grand finals. I faced Stun, and we both started with VCF too, and I lost. And on the first match against 7 keys, I believe one of the deciding factors was that he managed to get, I believe, double TF, and he managed to level the second TF. And even though I killed the first one, having in this mirror the TF level is just insanely powerful. Against Stun, when I lost, I actually managed to level my TF, while Stun didn't. But I did in like a really aggressive play. I saw my hand with triple rummage in a TF, and I was like, okay, we have a dream. I really wished, I gotta be honest, I really wished it happened on turn 4. I would probably have done it on turn 4 because then I would prove myself live stream on a championship that I can indeed level TF on turn 4. But I hadn't found stress testing, and I chose not to go to the level up. But so I played TF on 10-6. I instantly leveled him and stun killed him. And then I never get to draw my second TF. And this was my demise.
All
I
right.
couldn't win the game anymore because I invested so much. Like, I didn't level TF to pick a card, which is normally a way you do that you keep your resources up. I leveled him using triple rummage. It wasn't even a rummage into double stress testing to draw a lot of cards, of real cards. I triple rummage. So I lost 3 cards in the way. I got one back through blue card, but I never get to use my TF leveled. I went down to 8 cards in my deck to have both TFs on the bottom 8 cards. I talked to Drizzle after the games this week, and he told me maybe I could not have let such uh, uh, made maybe I shouldn't have made such a committal play because there was, with the given information, I had 16% chance of having double TF in the bottom 8 cards. I didn't even know I would reach 8 cards, but so I had, and having double TF down there would instantly lose me the game.
Well, it happens sometimes, so I guess the audience
Yeah.
is at least happy that a TF has been killed somehow by some means. But
Yeah.
did you actually face any hard counters for the deck during the tournament, or something that you would call hard counter for the deck?
So the closest thing I believe there is for hard counter to TFS would be Lissandra, right? Trando Lissandra is the one thing I think people trying to counter FCF use. I faced it on round 2, and I managed to get a double win over Trando Lissandra. Both Furashen and FCF faced it and won me the game. I'm not sure whether TF it was against Majin Bay. I'm not sure whether TF leveled or not. I think he did, and that was actually the way I got out, like, fairly easily. It was a quick matchup. I think I high rolled a bit. Majin Bay didn't roll that many control tools he needed to keep my resources down, and I managed to get some really big damage. I made an attack with double ballistic bots. Both my ballistic bots were like huge. I had one with 8 attack, a second one with 6 attack, and he tried to wither away my bot and stay with the high health. And I had a suit up to keep him healthy and kill him. And then he had to vengeance my bot, and I think this trade just wrecked his game.
Yeah, and sometimes, well, on one hand, the counter needs to draw their tools because, as you said, he didn't draw his tools, so that was one step away from losing the game. But you also apply so much pressure with the TFs, so no matter at how hard they try to kill your board, if you just commit enough and apply enough pressure, you can just kill them and they do not have a chance. But let's move forward to the last deck because it's probably more interesting than the good old FistTF. It's our Aegis OTK, how we name it. And I do think that it is nothing changed from the list that you have played for both TFs and both the Aegis OTK. So why still bring Furashen? We were debating after our interview if you would bring Furashen because now people know that you're going to play it or you like it, or are you going to mind game? You decided to go for Furashen. Why?
So I think Furashen, I think we were in a spot where people could be trying to go for Trando Lissandra, and I believe Furashen is actually really good against Trando Lissandra. I don't think this deck is terrible against FistTF. It's not ideal, but I have managed to get some wins. Not only Fior wins, if FistTF doesn't apply enough pressure, you can fairly easily, with Spirit's Refuge, get your health back up and start on turn 6 and 7 and 8. You start putting your own pressure and you tell them, okay, you gotta block with your elusive, man. Otherwise, I'm going to kill you. I think Furashen's biggest issue is with Affiliate Spirtwater, and in a tournament where we have region lock, people have to choose of whether using FistTF or Affiliate Spirtwater. So I think people would rather much use FistTF, and if I'm not facing Pablo, I'm all good with Furashen. Like, just don't get me that 3-4, please. Please, mercy.
Like, as you
It's
said, you kinda cannot play Bilgewater outside of PNZ or outside of Targon efficiently, and PNZ is not really a region that is shining at the current moment, so having a region that you usually cannot pair it with a region like Bilgewater and still have power regions like, for example, the Targon that is in Bilgewater Targon, and you could pair it for Shadow Eyes, for example, for the Aphelios Diana combo or something else, I think is the right way to go, and probably you expected that as well.
yeah. I'm not sure about my choice of Fusion and FistF or more based on the fact that these are decks I'm very comfortable with. I think they manage. If I don't know what I'm up against, I think these decks are the ones I can I can keep my hopes up to face anything I can find a way. If everyone tries to bring aggro, I'm okay. If they try to bring control, I'm okay. So I don't feel like I have too many. And also, I think Firshen can struggle if I'm expecting to find TK Soraka. So while people are not playing TK Soraka, I'm okay with playing Firshen. And I think using Ionia and Demacia is really good because these are both regions that don't actually see play. The champions, Shane and Fiora, also don't see play. So this is like the least amount of conflict I can have with, and the best usage I can have from two regions. Of course, there are some Lee Zoe or Lee Karma decks that use Ionia, but that's all, or at least all I can think of. And in the end, I think this is one of the tier 1 decks. I had, like I said, in the finals, in the grand finals, in the winner finals, I faced FistF with Fiorashin, so both mirror matches. And in the grand finals, I faced FistF with Aphelios SI, so with Zoe and Atrocity. And having Fiora in my backup plan, like my second deck being Fiora, means I have a lot of advantage in that matchup, in that second matchup. Because when we were playing FistF, I was like, okay, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter who wins the first game, because FistF is just going to beat its game, right? So we start in a mirror of FistF. Whoever wins will lose the next game, because then will be FistF beating the second deck, which doesn't really matter. And the matchup, which is the most important of all, is the third one. So Furshen turned out to be a really great choice. It faced really well second decks. When I faced this 10 lineup, I think giving the name, the new name to the deck, AG's OTK, is more than fair with it, because I think I made a play I'm really proud of, which was my turn 8 pass. I had no mana left. I had already developed, and Stan had 8 mana and 2 spell mana, and I decided to pass and burn 7 mana, even though I had a full board and he had like 4 or 5 blockers, and I could just remove them. But I think once I did that pass, I just I made him. It was like he had to compress his mana on the next turns, and he couldn't. And then it was not actually an OTK, because I didn't take him from 20, but in one turn I take all of his board in like 15 health. So while trading up on mana, which was insane. So I really like the way this deck's playing out. It's really good to point out that in the first matchup, I faced 7 keys and we went to Furation Mirror. And I had the nuts hand in the start. I had the curve Fiora, Shen, and Sharpsight backup. So it was really, really hard for him to do anything against me. But then the game dragged out. Okay, I couldn't snowball. I snowballed the board. I won like a lot. I had 3 units he had none, and then he drops Bright Steel Formation. All of a sudden, the game just swings to the side, and he starts snowballing on that Bright Steel Formation. Mine, I don't have mine, so he found his formation. I try to struggle with my units a bit, try to have some barriers to keep my units alive. I think 7 keys isn't on triple edges, so he doesn't have enough resources to put me under pressure to kill my board. And after a few turns, I managed to get a barrier. My Shen's leveled. I kill formation, and I overcome his formation and win the game 2 turns afterwards. I think this was a really big matchup. It was, I'm not sure if we were draw dependent or not, but I think my emotions were really high up. I think I had many 7 keys is from Sultans, right? So I knew all my former colleagues from Sultans were watching. I had a play where I could kill him. After killing the formation, he had 7 health. He had 6 health. I was attacking. I had the Shen with 5 attack connecting to the Nexus, and I had a Sharpsight in my hand. Like, it was the last card I had in my hand. And I could have used the Sharpsight. And I was trading down and destroying all his board, keeping 3 units alive. And I was like, okay, I'm not using this Sharpsight because my heart can take it.
You're saying that
my heart doesn't deserve all these emotions, this adrenaline. What if he has concerted strike? So I'm going to play it slow. I win in 2 rounds, and that's all. I don't have to use the Sharpsight.
you mentioned
that
that
was
it
all.
might not be draw dependent, or it might be not sure, but I think it was draw dependent those specific turns because you needed to draw Bright Steel Formation to get back into the game and somehow steal the win. I do not know if there were other chances for you, like when you are presented with a Bright Steel Formation turn 9, it's kinda hard to come back if you do not have one of your own. Unfortunately you drew it, but you spoke beautifully.
No. I never drew it.
Oh, you never drew it?
No, I never drew formation. I went through his formation with some spells. Yeah, I faced the Fusion mirror, which is like the mirror everyone says who draws formation wins. I didn't have my own, he had his, and I still somehow, out of the blue, managed to get my win.
Right, you're crazy. You are crazy. You talked beautifully about the games, but I'm curious if Fiorashen dropped any game during this tournament and why, if it happened.
No, it haven't. It didn't drop any games. Most of my series, I played 4 series, right? So in the series where I had FistTF Mirror, I chose to get my better odds at first. So trying to go FistTF at first. And in the last, my second matchup where I wasn't facing FistTF, I was facing Imagine Bay. He had Trundle Lissandra, and I think his other deck was Lee Sin. I looked at his decks and I was, okay, he's never, ever, ever, ever starting with Lee Sin. He's always starting with Lissandra here. So since he's starting with Lissandra, I'm going to start with the deck that I have the better odds against, right? So I'm starting with Furshe. And so this was the only time Furshen could have dropped the game without me losing, and it didn't. Luckily, it didn't.
Did,
Happily, it didn't.
did you have any bricked hands or hands that weren't quite optimal or average, and did you have to make with them until you drew into some other units? Because we know Fiorashin sometimes just bricks gives you a bunch of spells and you need to make with, and you are like, alright, I have a Citria is my first unit that I can play. I guess I'm not playing the game until turn 6.
So in this matchup against Majin Bay, I had before the fight night, I had some talking with the guys on TMM, and I was hoping I would face Lissandra, and I decided, okay, if I'm facing Lissandra, I don't want any of the 1, 2, and 3 drops. Actually, what I want versus Lissandra is Shen into Screeching Dragon. I don't want to even play a 10-3 card. Like 10-3 cards doesn't matter. And then I open my hand as I'm facing Majin Bay, and I look at my hand, and it's Shen, Dragon, Deny, and Aegis, I think, or single combat. I'm not sure. Like, but I have this Dragon, Shen, and Deny. Okay, let's just click OK here when we play. I drew like God hand.
Go ahead, make my day. I know you cannot, but I'll at least give you a chance.
Versus, like, I think the deck that I drew a little bit bad was 50F. I didn't have in the first game where I dropped. I did not have Mystic Shot to take care of TF. And then we had this stun game where I had 2 TFs in the bottom 8 cards of my deck. But at some point, I even got 2 MK1 in my hand, and I couldn't play either because I had to be sure. Like, my only chance of getting out of that game was to have a TF on top of my deck. And if I shuffled MK2 on top of my deck, then what do I do? But regarding to draws, I'm not sure if I'm blessed by the deck, if it's my League of Legends past where I only played Fiora and now Fiora loves me on low, and and mostly I feel like I draw too well with the deck. But I think even against some matchups, like when I have a bad hand, I normally pass, and I pass with like 8 open mana, and no one feels comfortable playing a card against the Shen Fiora with 8 open mana. So they just pass back and they give me a draw. And then I get that unit draw I needed, so my hand's not a shitty hand anymore. And I really
as you mentioned, you do not feel comfortable passing into Shen Fiora that easily because you do know they have the tools to protect themselves. And more importantly, if you have, as you said, that one turn that you can draw a card, then you can simply get to the card and they do not even realize that your hand was bricked all along.
Yeah, exactly. I love passing, and many times I also pass when I have a hand, but I think this way I can lead my opponent to some kind of confusion, some level of confusion. Because, okay, then be brave and play. Maybe I have repulse and golden edges. Who knows? Maybe if you play a card, maybe if you drop your mana, now I can play my dragon and just kill whatever you play. So I think this really keeps people on their toes when they're facing me. Like, this is why I love this deck. It's really easy to bluff stuff because most of your spells in your spell combination too get in that 4 mana. So the fact that when you are with 4 mana, you're bluffing every single card in your deck makes it so strong to have an unreadable hand.
Yeah, definitely. With Golden Ages, you have yet another 4 mana card that you need to keep track of and needs to be
Exactly.
aware of. We've been talking about
Exactly.
the decks, we've been talking about the matchups and what you have been facing, but let's step back a bit from the game because we're closing the interview in a few minutes, and let's see, how did you prepare? For example, who helped you besides, of course, the guys from TMM, because obviously. Did anyone else help you? Did anyone else support you along the way? Because they do deserve a shout out, and now is their moment of glory.
Yeah, no, no, totally, totally. I think in TMM, I talked with a bunch of the guys. I talked a lot about the decks with Katasis, Kobe, and Peps mostly. Uh, Hollow was preparing too, but we didn't get to talk too much. Especially, we couldn't stream right because we had the problem with Crush Shard.
Yeah.
Kobe has an NA account, so I could scream, and I spent like 2 or 3 hours screaming with him, which was like insanely good for me. Also, I'd like to leave a shout out to Akihiko, which is a friend of mine here in Brazil, and he stood up till 3 in the morning, screaming with me. One day, I talked to him like, okay, I think I'm bringing Shen and FistF, and he was like, I don't feel like FistF could be targeted. I'm not sure this is a good idea. And I was okay. So hit me with everything you got. Take these decks you're thinking that can counter, and we're going to scream until we feel we have a grasp of how these matchups go. And he said, okay, let's do it. And CSTF went on a rush, like it beat everything that was supposed to beat it. And in the end of our scrim session, like this session really made me comfortable with the decks, because this scrim let me feel like, okay, this is unbeatable. I can just, it doesn't matter. I know everyone is going to target it. It doesn't matter. This will beat everything on its front because it's a broken deck. Yeah.
Yeah, this
So
can beat everything, and I think this can beat everything is a good note to end on. Thank you, Gareth, for being around with us. Congratulations again for the win, and we are expecting a lot of you for the next week you are going to play, which is this week. Thank you for being
yeah.
around.
Oh, Cassian, I have one extra shout out to do, which is to Z Turtle.
Of
Z
course.
Turtle is my mate that is with me as a salesman, a second salesman. Like we had salesman of Golden Ages for Fioreshen. So
I
I
mean,
talked with him a lot because he likes
one of
decks
you
so
won an
much.
A. I think it's pretty good selling. It's a pretty good selling proposition. So you got it already. FistF, you can try to target it. Probably it won't work for you. If you do it and it works, you're probably lucky, and they do not draw their TF and not level it. And AGSOTK, good version, especially if you are Garretz and Fioraya falls in love with you and you draw her all the time, or at least you draw your curve perfectly, or if not, you know how to pass with full mana so they never expect that you are actually bricked. We'll leave you guys with that note and see you next time.